Hello, Matt. Good to see you again. This week's live stream of us talking about the macro markets and Tesla and other things. How's it going?
Very good, thanks. Volatile day for sure, but things are going well.
Yeah, definitely. One thing is a disclosure on our YouTube live channel. There's a disclosure at the beginning that states that none of this is investment advice. This is just our own thoughts and opinions on things, and we'll take questions. We'll try to reserve, the last 30 minutes or so for questions. We'll first talk about macro market stuff. Like Matt said, a lot to talk about there, and then we'll talk about some Tesla news and price action, including today and such, and maybe a little Rocket Lab thoughts on their Neutron announcement coming up in a couple days, and Roblox, and we'll just take questions. Lemonade, we'll take questions on those are the stuff we usually cover, but we'll take whatever questions people have at the end. So yeah, Matt, with the macro market, I mean, yeah, today started strong for Tesla, especially. That's our highest conviction name, our largest position in our fund, and personally, obviously, and probably most people that follow us, they're most interested in Tesla, and it followed the whole macro market collapse. I guess when Powell shared in his testimony that they might accelerate their interest rate hikes by a few months. Is that what you sort of gathered from this?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the general story that we've been hearing from Powell is inflation is transitory, and we're not really too concerned about it, and any sort of rate hikes will be kind of far in the future, next year sometime. So the fact that story is changing a little bit, they're talking about rate hikes potentially a little bit sooner. I think that definitely set the market into some jitters. So yeah, we saw just incredibly strong bull market at the open today, and then it
Yeah.
all went exactly opposite, kind of across the board. Like even the Nasdaq was, I think it was up. I forget the exact number, but it was up like over 1%, I think, which is pretty large for an index like that, and
Mm-hmm.
dropped pretty drastically the other way. So
Yeah. Yeah. And what was crazy was last night when I went to bed, I guess there was some kind of Future Times interview with the Moderna CEO, and he had given some like seemingly cautious or negative comments on the vaccines not working on this Omicron variant. So it was like the futures went down like 1% very suddenly last night. Must have been about 10 p.m. Pacific time around that time. And purportedly because of that interview released by the Moderna CEO. And so I went to bed thinking, oh, we could be tanking tomorrow morning at the open. And I wake up, a little bit before the open, and I say, oh, look, we're only down like 0.5%. In the open, we're up a couple percent, and we're back to growth mode. Growth stocks doing well, and yeah, and ARK Investment, their ETF was doing great, and that's sort of like my I guess my benchmark for growth stocks is the ARKK, ETF. And yeah, suddenly the Powell testimony, the market didn't like what it heard about accelerating the timeline for increasing rates, and bam, we just went right back down.
well, I
So
mean, it really started on Friday. We had a short day of trading on Friday, but the whole kind of Omicron scare. I mean,
yeah,
that was like when that news first came out, was right after the Thanksgiving holiday, and so markets crashed hard in the few short hours of trading on Friday.
hmm
Then obviously recovered yesterday and this morning, and now they seem to be um, fluctuating to the downward side again quite a bit.
yeah,
It's interesting to me how like this new variant emerges and tanks market all of a sudden, and then the Moderna CEO like already has opinions on what's going to work and what won't. And maybe I'm getting too cynical, but it seems like they're listening to the CEOs of the drug companies, and like what's going to be needed for vaccines and boosters. Like they're always going to say that, oh, we need to invest in some new vaccine and some new booster. So I try to take comments from interested parties with a grain of salt with this sort of thing. But putting that aside, I mean, it doesn't seem like this is an overly concerning new variant. So I think concerns of increased lockdowns and that sort of thing will be lasting. I think the bigger concern in my mind is, rate hikes and some of the stuff that the
Yeah.
Fed could be pushing.
Yeah, I mean, the rate hikes is kind of an interesting conundrum. Like on one hand of the spectrum, yeah, they could raise interest rates and it pushes growth stocks down a bit because of discounting future value of things with higher, when you can get when interest rates go up, it causes the growth stocks to be valued less today versus in the future or whatever. But on the other hand, if they push rates up, how is the Fed going to service its debt? It's going to be harder for so they can't really, they're kind of caught. They can't push rates up very high if they do, I would think. I mean, what do you think? Do you think they can push it up
I
beyond
don't
like
think they
3%?
can. I don't think we're good. Like, the government is not going to be able to service the debt if it pushes up to 5% rates, which was kind of normal from historical standards. So I think they've kind of painted themselves into a corner here where they maybe they'll raise them like 0.25%, and everyone's like, oh whoa, that's like nothing in kind of the grand scheme of things. But yeah, I really don't think it's going to be sustainable for them to raise rates above, I don't know, call it 3.5%, 4%. They're just going to be huge ripples. I don't think there's going to be like political capacity for that. I think people will say, fine, we'll take the inflation, because you can't have half the federal budget go towards servicing debt.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, I agree.
So how does this pan out then? I mean, do we just have 10 years, do you think, or longer of just kind of low interest rates and high kind of nominal inflation?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to see beyond a few years, but I would say the rest of this decade, it seems like interest rates are going to have to stay very low, and maybe beyond. Maybe we'll never see rates above 5% ever again. Like I could, that might be a thing of the past, and I remember when I was first learning about finance and interest rates were like 5%, 7% or something. It's where you get a mortgage or whatever. And I was like, oh, that's pretty good. That's what one thought, because it used to be like 20 or 30% in the 70s or 80s. Like that's never coming back. And I was like, okay, that's a time of the past. That's not going to happen ever again. I could realize that. But now it's like maybe 5 or 7% is never going to happen again in my mind, so we'll see. I mean, I think, it's interesting. The Fed's kind of caught in this dance where it has to go between, no rates, like, what they're doing now, up to raise rates to like 1 or 2% and then back down. They're just going to go back and forth. And I think Powell mentioned in the testimony, I was listening to some of the key parts and how they're surprised about the labor market, and they did surveys and they think that people aren't going, the labor supply isn't good because people are still uncertain about the COVID variants and such. But I think that's all. I don't think that. I think that's noise. I think that the society has just changed for good, and there's a lot of people that just are not going to work again that used to work. They were used to working restaurant jobs or whatever type of labor, was very common, that are hard to find now. And those people just found work elsewhere, or found ways to survive in other ways with other types of income, whether it's crypto related or maybe just moving in with family members. I just think a lot of people are just never going to go back to the types of jobs they used to have. And that's not being reflected in a lot of the surveys that they're capturing, or Powell is apparently reflecting on his reasons for the labor supply shortage. So it's going to be, I still think the labor supply shortage may cause them to delay rates. I think that we're kind of in this, like we were talking about, they can't really raise rates too much too fast because they know they can't service the debt. But at the same time, they don't want to let the market know that the rates are going to stay too low for too long, because then the stock market just continually floats up higher and higher. And they're kind of like Elon putting cold water on Tesla stock. They're trying to keep the market from not getting out of control, and for some reason. So it's an interesting dance they're doing. I don't know if it's intentional, but it's just sort of how I see it. And other big news is Jack Dorsey from Twitter, right? I mean, stepping down, that's a big thing.
Yeah, that was surprising.
Yeah. I mean, we're on Twitter Spaces right now, and we got a lot of people following us on Twitter. We're also on YouTube Live and recording this, but yeah, that's surprising that he suddenly stepped down. I mean, there's been talks of it different times in the past, but this came out of the blue, right? I mean,
yeah, I mean, he's the only other, kind of large company CEO that I can think of, who was running two companies, Twitter and Square, kind of like Elon. So my impression had been then that he would kind of stick around and do both. He seemed completely capable of it. It was interesting reading his email because he talked a lot about how he was kind of doing it for the good of the company, and for like how important it was for kind of founder-led organizations to be able to kind of mature past the point where their founder is. I'm not sure how much I actually believe that though, because it seems like a clear choice of he's choosing Square, and he generally just seems more interested in like Bitcoin and like cryptocurrencies in general than with Twitter. And I would imagine Twitter has become a bit of a, maybe it hasn't been a headache for him, but there's been lots of like seeing him on the Joe Rogan show that he did a long time ago, where like they kind of like ripped him apart for like some of the free speech like restrictions that Twitter has enforced, and like it seems like the company has taken kind of a turn from where he originally wanted it to go. So I do kind of wonder if part of that is he knows he's not going to kind of make Twitter the Wild West, which is maybe the way he'd like it to be.
Yeah.
So maybe he just says, I want to focus on something I'm actually interested in then.
Yeah, there's just so much political posturing around Twitter, censorship, and politicians calling him into Congress to testify about Twitter's, censorship, and he just doesn't like being the piñata of that, or have to, I feel exactly, I think you're right that he's more passionate about crypto and Bitcoin in particular. Yeah, and as we're talking, Tesla just went positive for a short time, and now it's about flat. So maybe we're maybe we're on our way back up in the macro markets. Who knows?
Yeah, it's interesting. One other just point I've been thinking about a little bit lately from a kind of macro market perspective is we've seen kind of cryptocurrencies rise and fall with the broader stock market. There's been a somewhat high kind of correlation with Bitcoin and Ethereum and everything with the these growth stock names. But in my mind, I think that correlation is going to break down at some point in the next couple of years. If you are going to look at Bitcoin in particular as like a store of value and something of a hedge against kind of like national currency risk and monetary policy gone amok and fiscal policy gone amok. At some point, if there's say runaway inflation or they have to raise rates, I think that that correlation would like almost certainly break down. And so I think that can potentially create some opportunities in a market that otherwise may be in turmoil. So I've been thinking about that more and more lately. But
so you're thinking that Bitcoin will separate from the rest of the macro market and kind of continue a potential bull run even despite what's going on with inflation? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it seems like it should. Not necessarily that it will, but a lot of the like if you look at the weekly or monthly kind of movements of Bitcoin or Ethereum relative to growth stocks and like ARKK, they are. It's not a perfect correlation. I think we did a beta analysis on it recently, and it was like a beta of like 0.7 or something like that. So reasonably high correlation. And to me, that just doesn't make sense because they're different markets. Like, betting on Ethereum as like kind of the new financial platform of like internet web 3.0, or Bitcoin as like the new store of value that's, kind of disjointed from any individual country. If those narratives are true, and I'm not saying they are necessarily, but if that does pan out, it seems like these kind of moves and these correlations, these short-term correlations with the broader market should start to fade out eventually.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I agree. I think Bitcoin is its own kind of enigma, and Ethereum. I mean, there's a correlation with all the cryptos, which is strange, right? So it's not like Bitcoin is completely separate from Ethereum, even though they're very different functions, right? So you almost think Ethereum and Bitcoin at some point should splinter off, and Solana, Ethereum, whatever the functional crypto is versus Bitcoin, which is like digital store of gold. That's what I see it as the primary function as. So you think those two things would kind of split off at some point, but they really haven't. They're kind of moving in tandem. I mean, sometimes Ethereum goes up higher at a faster rate than Bitcoin, but they're usually both going up at the same time or both going down at the same time.
Directionally,
So
they're the same.
yeah, I wonder if there will be a point where they're directionally not correlated, where like, half the time Bitcoin's up and Ethereum's down, and half the time, Ethereum's up and Bitcoin's down or something, So I wonder if when that'll happen. You would think theoretically that should happen at some point in time, but it's so early. I think people kind of group a lot of crypto together and buy baskets of it together or whatnot.
Yeah, I think you'd probably have to get most of the market activity kind of away from speculation and more towards kind of like functional use of it. So people are, only kind of like rarely using Bitcoin for, like purchasing blocks of it. Or, Ethereum is being used, for like actual, like capabilities that are built on that platform. I think when most of the activity kind of goes from that instead of, retail and even some institutions, kind of buying it on a more or less speculative basis. I would think that should break the correlation, but I could be wrong. I'm kind of curious to see how it pans out, though.
Yeah, me too. So yeah, the Jack Dorsey thing is fascinating. I don't know if people realize how this could really change. We were talking about the Twitter stock yesterday, or me and you, Matt, and the Twitter stock, I feel like has been really languishing. I think it's down 15% year to date, and so Jack Dorsey stepping down, it's a whole new direction potentially for the company. I think it's like a vacuum of opportunity for the stock potentially. I'm not sure it's bullish for the company, like long term, 5 years, 10 years out, but for the next 1 or 2 years, it's possible that it could be very bullish. Could turn out to be bullish. Maybe they figure out ways to maximize profit more than Jack Dorsey was probably more focused on the long game, as a founder. But now you have a new CEO. Maybe he's more focused on increasing shareholder value, kind of like Tim Cook of Apple versus Steve Jobs. So. We'll see. I mean, do you have any thoughts on that? Do you think Twitter? I mean, it could go down further though, but I just feel like there's a new potential uncertainty that was not there before, but uncertainty in terms of good risk and bad risk. But it just seems like there's a new way to look at it.
Yeah, I do think there's probably going to be a new, kind of focus on financial results. The new CEO, I'm blanking on his name at the moment, but I read he sent like an email to all of the employees as well, and published that for everyone to see. And he made some comment. I wish I had it pulled up here, but something to the effect of like, I'm super optimistic about the opportunities we have to create value or something like that. So I kind of got the impression that Twitter would try to focus on monetization a little bit more than they have so far. I mean, if you look at a lot of their efforts to date, like Twitter Blue and like some of this other stuff, it's like a little weird, and like it almost feels it has the feel of like it was just like some little like half-hearted kind of project that like, oh yeah, we should do something, sure. Like, and then Jack's like, yeah, why don't you go give that a try, and we'll implement it and we'll see what we can learn. But I think if this new CEO has more of a kind of financial focus, and he's the chief technology officer, so it's not necessarily apparent that he will. But I think it's likely that you'll have. I think Tim Cook was a great example that you just gave of someone who goes in and kind of expands rather than being the creative kind of guru that Steve Jobs was. Just expand the existing product lines, focus on margins. Like strengthen the the operations of the business. So I could certainly see that being the case. And I would suspect if that is the path that he chooses for his leadership style, probably will really help the fundamentals of the company and could be a short-term, boon for the stock.
Yeah, one thing I'd love that is if they had like a subscription model where you didn't have to ever see an advertisement, because like a quarter of my tweets or a third of the tweets on my feed are advertisements. And so it's like a lot of noise to scroll through sometimes, but I'd pay like 10 or 20 bucks a month, no problem, just to never see an advertisement in my face again, looking at Twitter, like there'd be a lot of people that would pay that, and that could generate a lot of revenue for them. So just that option would be nice, for example. And I think I don't know why they haven't turned that on
I
yet.
assumed you did get that with Twitter Blue. Is that not true?
I don't know. I haven't looked in. They haven't even marketed Twitter Blue to me in that way. I don't know. I thought Twitter Blue was like some other weird special perks, but I didn't see anything about like never getting advertising again. But you think Twitter Blue means that you don't have
Maybe you're
to
right.
see advertising?
I'm just scanning through there right now, and yeah, I don't see anything about advertisement, so maybe that's not true. But
Yeah, you get like perks, but I don't think. Yeah, if there was some perk that said you don't ever see advertising, I would pay a fortune for that. So,
yeah,
just
yeah.
trying to clear my life of as much advertising as possible. Like listening to the radio on the car, like whenever an advertisement goes on, I switch the channel immediately, and I get so frustrated when I switch like 4 channels in a row, and it's 4 channels of advertising in a row. I'm like, out of options. I'll just
You
listen
got to
to
stream.
silence
You
for
should
5 minutes.
you should start streaming with Spotify. Like we were talking about that a little bit
Yeah.
last week. I
But
really
I
am
like
kind of.
live. But sometimes I'm just
You
in the
like
mood to
live?
listen to live news. I'm listening to like financial news or just news. I just want to be in like connected in a live way. And then I just want to go through like, I have like 4 or 5 channels. And if they're all in advertisement at the same time, it's frustrated. And I don't want to listen to like a recorded thing. I want to listen to like just
I
what's
am
going on in the world
surprised
right
that
now.
you're listening to radio. Like there's a comment on here, dude. Radio? Like,
Well, like internet radio, like tune in is what it is. Tune in. So
oh,
you have
okay.
like all the internet radio stations on it with the Tesla. I don't think Teslas even have like, I think they got rid of like
They
AM. I used to
they
listen
have
to AM.
FM, but yeah, there's no AM. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, all right, we went on a tangent there. So, um, I guess the last week we did the Tesla Probability Lab demo, and that was pretty. I think that was popular. People like that. Um, Got a lot of positive comments. There's another tool we use occasionally with our options called the Risk Navigator within the Interactive Brokers platform. And maybe we can go over a demo of that sometime in the future. But we use this tool within the Risk Navigator called the What If Scenario. And you can do this stuff on a spreadsheet, and some people do it on a spreadsheet, but I find this tool easy to do it within. If you just basically, you can put a hypothetical set of option positions that you're thinking about buying, maybe options you want to buy based on what you looked at in the probability lab. And then you put in those positions, hypothetical positions and you say, okay, if, X date, like maybe you say 2 months from now, or if it's a 1 year out option, maybe you say 6 months from now or 9 months from now, you put a certain date. You say, if the price of Tesla gets to this price on that date, exactly how much would these options likely be worth, and it gives you like an actual estimate. So you'd see, oh, I put in $10,000 for these, 5 contracts, they'd be worth $100,000 if that price gets to where I think it could get to. So you can kind of quantify a little bit better how much your options might be worth at certain times, depending on where Tesla stock is at those times. So if people are interested in a demo of that, we can potentially put one together like we did the probability lab. Just put it in the comments or set us notes on Twitter, and we can do a demo of that in one of our upcoming streams, maybe.
Yeah, it's a really great tool because it will allow you to see the kind of the changes to your entire portfolio given a given change in the underlying security. So that's pretty helpful. And then the other thing, I used to be one of those guys that would do my own, like in Excel
Spreadsheet.
spreadsheet. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's like, the basic way to do it that I would imagine most people who are interested in options would consider is, how much above the strike price is the underlying going to be, and then what's the kind of intrinsic value of the security that way. But the really nice thing about this tool through Interactive Brokers is it'll actually use the Black-Scholes pricing methodology. So it'll give you, let's say you've got you bought something that was out of the money, and maybe the stock rises close to the strike price, but you're still under the strike price. It will calculate the actual estimate. It will calculate the implied value for under that scenario of the actual Black-Scholes kind of derived valuation of the option, rather than just the intrinsic amount that's above or below the strike price. So that's one tool that's pretty helpful if you don't want to be building out an entire kind of detailed Black-Scholes model in Excel.
Yeah. And there's probably other tools out there that do this, and I'm sure, but it's just what we've grasped onto doing within the Interactive Brokers platform. So if people are interested, we can do a brief demo of that sometime soon. Those are the 2 main tools I think that are beneficial that we use within the Interactive Brokers platform for the options trades we often decide on. And a lot of it's around Tesla, and a lot of people that are listening are big on Tesla. So speaking of Tesla, the price is just Right now, it's flat on the day, up $1. So that's good. When the whole Nasdaq is down 1.5%, Tesla is flat. That's great. I'm happy with that. That's a good delta there between the market and Tesla. I mean, I think the Tesla price action could become really strong going into the end of the year and January potentially. I mean, there's this rumor of December 9th. What's going to happen? Do you think there's going to be any news or anything December 9th or any kind of unveiling, Matt? What are your thoughts on that?
I don't know. I mean, I keep going back and forth. Like, I do think there's reasons to believe that he could be dropping hints. So I don't want to completely discount that. I think it's tenuous to assume that it's going to be a split. And then you and I were actually talking a little bit yesterday. I started thinking it may be something Doge related rather than Tesla related. Elon has,
but he's signaling it with a Tesla stock. That's the thing I think about that is why would he signal it with like the Tesla stock purchase amount and stuff, if it's not Tesla related?
Well, yeah, assuming the Tesla stock,
sale amounts.
It could be Tesla related. I mean, one example, which I thought about for a while, and I think I spoke about it on my old channel.
Tell us about it.
Was I think that a thing that makes a lot of sense from like a physics standpoint and from an energy generation and use standpoint would be for Tesla to have, home solar generation, storage with power walls, but then also a way to use excess electricity production rather than selling it back to the grid, because there's a lot of regulatory hurdles with trying to sell power back to the grid. And if instead they were to develop, say, like a Dogecoin miner, or it could be a Bitcoin miner, but I think that's impractical given the kind of requirements for that. But maybe there's some sort of technical upgrade, and you can use, Tesla would develop some sort of product that's got like built-in compute and storage and can optimize between all those, and it would just mine Doge for you with your excess solar production. I could see that being some sort of announcement that ties together his interest in Doge, and maybe Tesla starts taking some payments in Doge or something like that.
Maybe you could pay for your car. You could pay for your monthly premium connectivity. If you have a power wall and solar, your extra money you're getting from the Doge could automatically pay for your premium connectivity option that you have to subscribe for in the Tesla, for example. So there's lots of ways to interconnect it all.
Yeah. It just again, I could be completely off base here, but it seems to me that he's been pretty silent on the Doge front for a while, but I think he's serious about it. And I don't really think that it's just like a something that he is only trolling with. I think he's kind of trolling with some of the Doge stuff, but also could be playing with it. The other connection, which I'm getting my tinfoil hat on here a little bit, but he had that tweet of like, oh, the Vikings were here on Mars, and he's always talking about like Doge to the moon, and like he's actually taking Doge to the moon. And then on that other, he did tweet like a thing about like those the Vikings invading Scotland, but I forget the name of the city. So Iona, I think it was. So I don't know.
It's supposed to be the year 1209, right? That some people thought it was the year 1209, but then someone else looked into it and was like, no, this is from the fight in 812 or something.
Yeah, that was, so I posted that kind of trying to debunk that it was the year 1209, because it was like a massacre at an abbey, and so I just looked at the history, and the massacre of the abbey was like in 806 or something like that. So,
okay, so you found that out,
I don't know. I kind of like these hilarious tinfoil hat conspiracy theories, but at the same time, I also try not to put too much weight into them. And I posted
a couple of polls last night late just to get a consensus of what an estimate of what all our Tesla Twitter sphere followers, we're all part of this tunnel Tesla Twitter sphere, and what we all think kind of collectively, get a sample of that. And it seems like whether there's an invite or not coming in the next few days for a surprise event on December 9th, it seems like about half of us think that's definitely not going to happen, while the other, half of us think it's either possible or almost certain. Only 6 or 7% of us think it's almost certain out of 1,500 people that responded. And then another question I asked, so we're split on that, whether it's like a new unveiling December 9th, very split on that. And then another question I posted was, will there be some special Tesla news on December 9th? Just some news, like a split or just something, some kind of news. And about a third of us said almost definitely not. So 2/3 of us think it's very possible or for sure. With about 16% of us saying for sure, or like 16% of us or 70% of us are very bought into the conspiracy theory that there's definitely something coming on December 9th. That's my takeaway from that. While about half of us are open to the possibility, but don't think it's for sure.
So where do you fall on those questions?
I'm in the very possible. I'm in the middle camp for both questions. I'm not in the definitely not, and I'm not in the for sure. I'm in the very uncertain for both questions, which is, in the past, I think, when I think of my, I probably would have been on the very skeptical, like definitely not or almost definitely not for both those things. But I just feel like the way Elon is, the quirkiness of him, and this, he's given us weird hints on Twitter in the past with this snake and Polynesian jazz, and some other weird things he's done. It just makes me realize, this is possible. This is not a definitely no thing.
But
Like, this is very possible.
Didn't the snake jazz end up not being a thing though? I could be wrong, but I thought people were implying that was S&P inclusion, and then that didn't happen because that was like in September, I think.
Yeah, well, I think, that was in September, but probably that could have been like he just knows it's coming, or maybe they reached out to Tesla. We don't know what the conversations behind the scenes could have been between S&P and Tesla as they kind of prepare them for it. And, he's not allowed to talk about that, obviously, but maybe this is his way of venting it out. Like, it wasn't proven that it wasn't part of it, but, I feel like there was something to that. I don't know.
I gave a little bit more credence to the chairs are underrated.
Yeah, that too. That was a big one.
That was probably a legitimate tweet.
Yeah. Or the Tesla stock price is too high. Remember that tweet? I mean, I think that was clearly, it was like a weird riddle to like, I'm going to split the stock. We're going to split the stock soon. It's too high. Not like that. It was, so there's a lot of strangeness in this. And Elon's the type of guy that would kind of put these riddles out there. Sort of like, it reminds me of that book, Ready Player One, with the founder putting all these Easter eggs out there that the Gunters have to go find, and Elon's like doing something like that with all of us. Sort of in my mind, I'm like, he's putting out these weird clues that some of us can find and, and maybe figure out what's going on. I mean, I don't think that's definitely true, but I think there's a significant chance he's doing that. I don't know. I don't know if it's 25% chance he's doing that or 10% chance or 50%, but it's not a 0 or 1% chance in my mind. It's a significant chance you have to consider. And if he is doing that, are we discovering the clues correctly or are we not? I don't know.
Yeah.
So
no, I would agree with all that.
Yeah, that's right. That's where I have that at. So, yeah, I mean, the Tesla price action, I wonder if it's going to tank come December 9th or December 10th if there's nothing special announced. I wonder if it'll drop. We'll find. It'll be so curious to see if there's no news that if the stock drops like 5% because of it or something,
I personally don't think that's likely. I mean, even you and I are extreme bulls on Tesla, and we can't make up our mind whether there's something there or not. So, it's not like we're directing massive amounts of capital into, additional purchases, which would be, running the stock up. So I think if we do see some sort of like huge run up going into 12.9 and nothing happens, then I could see that kind of being reversed out. But to me, it doesn't seem obvious that there's kind of like this rumor is impacting the stock price right now. I could be wrong, but that's kind of my take on it right now.
Yeah, I agree. I think the bigger mover of the price will be the deliveries for Q4 and the production number, especially. The production number is going to be, that's the real one to watch. I mean, deliveries are going to be tempered down a little bit, but from that email, obviously, we all saw. But I think the production number could be over 300,000, and that's going to be really bullish if that comes in. Do you think, what do you think the production rate's going to be from all the information you've looked at, Matt?
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of defer to Troy Teslike and others who track this stuff a little bit more closely. I used to track this like in incredible detail, kind of something similar to what Rob Maurer does. But I was like, spending hours. Like I
Yeah.
probably spent like for one quarter, I would guess like at least 40 hours trying to like hone in on this. And I was like
Mhm.
way off. So
Yeah.
I've kind of given up trying to, devote any type of, serious amount of time to that. So I would be super excited if it came in around 300,000. My
Yeah.
gut would be that it's likely going to be slightly lower than that. But I think that's
Yeah.
still going to be good news.
Yeah, Shanghai is the wild card. I mean, you see
Yeah.
reports of like,
Mhm.
20,000 cars a week being produced right now. Like that seems too crazy to me. I can't believe
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
much.
Yeah.
That's too much. I mean, that just seems ridiculous if that's how fast they've ramped up there. I mean, that would
I would
be
love for that to be true, but I'm not going to get
yeah.
invested personally in that storyline.
Yeah, yeah, that'd be like 1,000,000 cars a year run rate already before
Right.
they do this like expansion. So, it's possible, but I don't think that's likely. I think it's possible. Yeah, it's hard to know what's going on with China. I guess in a couple of weeks we'll get their numbers for all of November, right? The manufacturing numbers in the first or second week of December. We get it for November, I think. So that'll be really interesting because there was no 1 week shutdown like there was in October or
Hmm.
5 day shutdown like there was in October. And they might have ramped up further in November than they did in October. So that will be very telling.
Yeah.
That'll come out soon. So yeah, exciting. And there's lots of people trying to delay their orders until January, perhaps. So that's going to be a little bit of a logistics puzzle for Tesla in the US to deal with. People trying to wait till December to get their rebate. In China, though, that's the opposite, right? Isn't there? I think there's a big incentive that decreases by 30% after the end of this calendar year. So there's a lot of people in China that are trying to get the delivery before the end of the year, I think.
Yeah, and I think from what I've seen, it looks like there's a decent amount of supply there. I mean, they're obviously exporting a lot
Hmm.
from China to Europe, but it seems that I've always maybe had a slightly less bullish view on the local Chinese market. Just that pretty much since the factory opened, there has not been the sort of long lead times that you would expect if there was kind of massive Chinese demand. So
Yeah.
maybe there's a bit of a pull forward there, but to my mind, it doesn't matter so much what the split is between kind of demand from Europe and demand from China, as long as they can kind of maximize the output of the factory.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And if they can get that self-driving technology up and running in China a little sooner, if they can get it moving, I think they're trying to push that a little bit now again. Right now it's been focused mostly in North America or the US. But once I think they can kind of ramp up some self-driving technology or release it more in China, I think it'll pull demand, make demand a little stronger there too, hopefully. Um,
Yeah,
so
I hope so.
yeah,
It's yeah, I think they've got a decent amount of work to do on that still, and it sounds like they're probably going to try to prioritize like Canada would be a natural kind of next place to roll out.
sure.
Then probably Europe, and probably after that, then I would imagine they start really trying to optimize for China.
So you think China is going to be optimized after Europe in terms
I
of
think so. I mean, if the
pushing out
take
the
rate for
technology?
full self driving is really only like 1 or 2%,
It is low,
to me
yeah.
it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to try to um, prioritize that in front of, say, Europe, where there are people who purchased full self driving years ago that are still kind of waiting for it. So
That's true.
I think it's going to take some time to kind of roll out globally,
Yeah. I would
but
say on the
we'll
flip
see.
side, in China, almost because it's only 1 or 2% now, that's almost a reason they should really push it forward because
Hmm.
there's so much more opportunity. And also on the, flip side is that Chinese regulators are not going to be as crazy to deal with as all the European countries and regulators around the self-driving protocols or restrictions. Every country might be a little different and put different things in. In China, I think they'll probably get a much more flexibility in being able to roll it out. That's just my gut feeling. I haven't researched it well enough. We should ask Taylor Ogan. He might have a good opinion on the regulations around self-driving in China. So anyway,
Yeah.
uh, Rocket Lab, they have their product update on Thursday for the Neutron. What do you think that's going to be, Matt?
Yeah, I don't know what it's going to be, but I'm really excited. I don't necessarily think it's going to be any kind of like huge surprise that's like, oh, we're launching Neutron,
Yeah.
in 2 months and it's all done. I suspect they've still got a ways to go, but I think we'll probably learn some more of the technical specifications, maybe some of their, kind of engineering design choices. So I think I'm expecting it to be something of kind of like a product roadmap, like, technical layout, kind of the way that Elon does. So that's kind of what I'm thinking, but they were really sparse with the details. So it kind of just need to wait and see. But what's your thought? What are you thinking they may unveil?
Yeah, I'm very curious. I think the engine, what kind of engines they're going to put together.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll talk about the engines or something. That'll probably be the most interesting. I mean, I think people aren't really fully grasping, like me and you, we think Peter Beck, the founder of Rocket Lab, is super incredible, like genius, foundational, not quite the level of Elon Musk, but he's like a baby Elon Musk in terms of how incredibly innovative he is on rockets. And so I think it'll be really interesting to hear what he has to say and what kind of rocket engine they'll put together for this Neutron, and maybe they'll give more specs. So we'll see.
Yeah. The engine's going to be such an interesting choice because, we saw that leaked email from SpaceX basically saying how much trouble they were having with the Raptor engine, and that's that full flow staged combustion cycle engine, which they chose, is like amazing from a technical standpoint, but it sounds like it's very, very difficult to manufacture at scale. Which is, maybe not surprising, but I'm going to be kind of curious in light of that to hear what details they have on, with their rocket design. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah. So, all right, I guess let's go into some Q&A. We got about 20 minutes or so. Let's go into some Q&A here, and we'll just see what people want us to talk about. So from Justin, is the SpaceX bankruptcy risk likely to affect Tesla? Would Elon sell more shares in order to fund SpaceX? I don't think they're really, I mean, I think Elon was being a little melodramatic or a little mentioning the bankruptcy chance. I mean, legitimately, SpaceX could go bankrupt. It's very possible. But I think the same chances of that are the same chances of Tesla going bankrupt in 2000, anytime in its like 2017 or 18. They could have always tapped the markets for more equity. SpaceX can always tap investors for more equity, another raise. I don't think they're going to go bankrupt anytime soon or ever. I think it was just like, the way he talked to kind of get attention, make sure all the people involved in the engine production get on board with like, hey, let's make this a top priority. We need this to succeed. What do you think, Matt?
Yeah, I agree. I don't really view bankruptcy risk as like an actual risk, at least in the next, say, 5 years. If they just can't ever figure this out, and like the technical challenges are overwhelming, and Starlink doesn't work, and they can never get the Raptor production launched, and Starship's delayed like 5 years from now, then sure, maybe that's a risk. But they would, like, Elon's not going to give up on Mars just because they're having some technical trouble. Of course, he would do more capital raising, or he could sell some more shares to kind of infuse and get some more capital in the door for SpaceX. So yeah, to me, it's kind of a non-issue, and I really read it much more as a kind of rally the troops sort of message.
Yeah. From Jim Zhang, question: do you think the early tapering will actually crash the market later, or it's already priced in? Also, Tesla seems very strong these days, not like before. Yeah, I think this early taper is getting priced in right now, which is why the market swung. The Nasdaq swung 3%. It swung. It swung 3% from up. It was up like 1.5%, and now it's down 2%. So it was a 3% swing in the Nasdaq. I think it's being priced in right now. And it could go down further once it's confirmed. But right now, it seems like, the cat is out of the bag. Powell let it out of the bag in the testimony today, probably intentionally, so that the market is not so surprised in a few months, if and when they decide to taper early. And then Tesla seems very strong. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think Tesla is becoming quickly one of those big cap tech stocks. It's like a growth stock and a growth safety tech stock play at the same time. Very strong, very safe, in my opinion, long term. I think more investors are sort of coming to that conclusion. What do you think, Matt?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we've talked about this a couple times, that I kind of view Tesla as like a medium risk company, as it relates to these tapering concerns. The higher growth names, I think, are more at risk. Tesla's got a decent amount of cash flow already, though, but they're not at the level of like a Google or a Apple right now. But I think they will be pretty soon. I mean, their operating cash flow is like crazy. So I think as they get a little bit more mature, I mean, you could imagine by this time next year, Berlin and Austin are, kicking in some reasonably strong numbers, and they've kind of sorted through a lot of those kinks. The operating cash flow is going to be like, I don't know, maybe $7-8 billion per quarter, something in that neighborhood. So that's going to be really impressive. And I think when they get to that stage, then they'll be much less kind of impacted by tapering, which would hurt high growth stock names a lot more.
Yeah. Also, a theme I think about a lot is hard tech versus soft tech, and Tesla's got both. They have all the software and AI, but their hard tech is huge. Their production and manufacturing of EVs, that's just like huge. There's not a whole lot of hard tech, innovative, disruptive plays out there. Tesla's one, Apple with the iPhone, Nvidia with the chips, but I think if you can get some kind of a hard tech play, disruptive hard tech play, I like that. For times of uncertainty, I think there's like more staying power versus, purely soft tech play, whether it's, I don't know, Zillow or Twitter or Snapchat. Those are like, Snapchat, I guess, has the spectacles they're trying to do, but it's still in its infancy. So I like having a stock like Tesla that's really got a huge hard tech part of its value. So
yeah, and that's going to only be growing on the energy side too. I mean, I think that hard tech is like the reason why the energy industry, which is like probably the most antiquated industry on earth right now, like we've got all these physical, assets and wires like literally going across the entire country. It's very hard to disrupt that if you aren't really good at physical tech. So that's going to be, I think, very fun to watch play out over the next decade plus.
Yeah, for sure. Next question, Mr. Allen the Dane. Hi, I really love your talks. What are in your opinion the goals for Rocket Lab after launches? What is their Starlink? Matt, you want to take a stab at that one?
Yeah, so they've kind of laid this out in really good detail, where they have their like satellite launches, and then they're going to like this Neutron is going to be their kind of larger capability rocket launching, but even that's that's a bigger, I think it's like an order of magnitude larger total addressable market. But when you go from there to like a Starlink, which they call, I forget what they call it, something like services or something like that, then it's like a 2 orders of magnitude bigger than even the medium launch, like what the Neutron is trying to tackle. So we talked about this a lot on the interview we had, like the space industry roundtable. So if you want more details, I would check out that video that we posted a couple weeks ago. But really the idea is that there are a lot of services that can provide huge amounts of value here on Earth, that constellations of satellites that Rocket Lab is intending to kind of build and launch themselves, much like Starlink is for SpaceX. Then those would be very high margin and have a much larger total addressable market than just kind of launch to low Earth orbit.
Yeah.
So to me, that's the prize.
Yeah, I'm not sure anything is going to be as big as like internet connectivity, or unless it's something we can't really imagine right now. It seems like the Starlink internet connectivity constellation is like the breadwinner, but I think there's a lot of other great opportunities, agriculture, defense, maybe defense use, military use cases is maybe bigger than internet connectivity. I don't know, but there's a lot of other cases for constellations, satellites that Rocket Lab can put up that can justify a much higher market cap valuation than where they're at now. I think now they're close to 7 billion, but I mean, SpaceX, if it was traded publicly, I'm sure we all know that they'd be traded well above 100 billion market cap, even though that's where they were last valued on the private markets. So just imagine
they'd be valued higher than Rivian for sure.
Yeah, I would say for sure. Yeah. So I mean, Rocket Lab to be second place to like would be the legitimate second place. Rivian's not even a legitimate second place to Tesla, but they're priced as a second place. So I think Rocket Lab would be a legitimate second place to SpaceX, and it could grow into a nice valuation from here. So all right, let's go to the next question. From D, what do you make of Elon's leading the Q4 call to provide an updated product roadmap? Roadster probably pushed out even further. Is that what he suggests? Yeah, I mean, he wants to give an updated product roadmap. I'm curious what that is. I mean, is he going to talk more about the Cybertruck or the bot or something brand new that he doesn't want to have an unveiling about? Or is he just going to talk further about the semi and the trucks? Or, maybe one thing I was thinking of that hit me when I was thinking about this tweet he put out yesterday was what if, because he mentioned it around the same time he's talking about the supply chain issues, right? And it's still crazy. So what if there's like some supply chain issues to such an effect where, they now can manufacture so many more batteries with the 48680 development? What if they're getting to a place where they can develop enough batteries to produce, 3 million cars next year, but they only have enough supply with chips or whatever to sell 1.5 million cars next year? Well, they should go ahead and produce that many batteries, but just go crazy with the power walls and the mega packs and stuff. Like maybe that's what he's going to announce. Like, hey, we're going to really go gung ho on the grid storage batteries because we have ramped up our battery supply in such a way, but the other supply chains aren't caught up to vehicles yet. So I don't know. What do you think, Matt? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't think he would join the call just to say like, oh, we're gonna push out Roadster and Cybertruck like further back. To me, that doesn't seem likely. What was it, 2 years ago? I think he said they were not going to have any new product announcements for a while just because they had so much on their plate.
Yeah.
So to me, it seems about right to like kind of dust off master plan part. Well, create master plan part tray or whatever it would be called. Because it seems to me like they've delivered on almost everything from that part 2, other than autonomy, which clearly they're working on. They've already given a lot of detailed kind of updates on that. The one thing I would sort of expect to be announced is the FSD version 2 chip, because they were talking about that was launched I think in like spring of 2018, and he said like 2 years later they'd probably have another version. So we're a little bit past that time frame already. So it seems like that would be maybe in all cars, starting after December 9th. I don't know, whenever.
Yeah.
Would probably have that hardware 3 chip. And I wouldn't be surprised either if there's a hardware 4 for all of full self-driving. This is something we talked a little bit about last week, just with some of the issues that I've been having, with full self-driving. So it could be that they're just, we already know that they're planning to do a hardware 4. They were saying that's going to be on the Cybertruck. So maybe it's some more kind of details around that.
Yeah. That's all very possible too. That's good speculation.
I'd like to see more on the Tesla bot and some stuff on Tesla Energy even. I mean, they've been pretty quiet around that. So maybe the Doge miner's unveiled.
Exactly. Maybe Dojo as a service or something, neural networks as a service.
Yeah.
From Alex Sandu, what do you guys think of selling put options as a strategy? Yeah, I mean, we sold a bunch of put options on Tesla, 9 months ago when we've talked about a number of times, and those have done very well. They were deep in the money put options. And so, selling put options on stocks you're very bullish on, I think is not a bad strategy, especially if it feels like you don't think the stock is, or you think the stock has gone up a little bit, or you don't think it's going to go up too much further anytime soon, and you want to just collect premium. It's a good strategy. A lot of people do it. We've done it on some other names other than Tesla occasionally, I think. So what do you think, Matt?
I think maybe one of the most simple ways to think about it is it's like a limit buy order if you sell puts. So we've done that a couple times where it's like, oh, we'd like to increase our exposure to whatever the company is that we're looking at. If you sell puts, then you can say, all right, well, if the stock drops to such a degree that I take ownership, then I'm kind of okay with that, because at the time that you put the put trade on,
Yeah.
you presumably would have been okay with buying it at that price, which is going to be lower than the current market price. And if it
Yeah.
goes up instead, then you collect some premium and kind of no harm done. So
Yeah.
I think it's a good strategy, when used in kind of moderation and for something that you're kind of optimistic on and wouldn't mind taking delivery of.
Yeah. It's a great way to think about it. Like a good till cancel limit order to buy it at a price below where it is with the intention to hold it for a while, as long as the put expiration is, for example. All right. Next question here. From Alex Johns, what are your thoughts on Tesla ramping 2 factories at once? Do you think Berlin is further ahead as they had plenty of time to smooth out pre-production? Yeah, 2 factories at once. I'm excited to see how it goes. I'm optimistic, but I don't think it's realistic to think that those 2 factories will ramp up as quickly and smoothly as the Shanghai factory. I mean, I would love it if they did, but I would think, I remember Fremont factory ramping up, over the years, and that was, that was a slow ramp, relative to the Shanghai. So I was super surprised when the Chinese factory got put up so quick and ramped up so fast. So I think it'll be somewhere in between how slow Fremont ramped up versus, Shanghai. So the first 1 or 2 quarters, I'm not expecting too much volume from those 2 factories, but hopefully by the third and fourth quarter, we'll have significant volume. And then into 2023 is when I think those will get more closer to full capacity. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. The only thing I'd add is, I think Q4 may be the kind of local maximum for gross margins, for automotive gross margins. Just because you would, basically Q4 is going to be like Shanghai operating at very high capacity, and the same for Fremont, with almost nothing from Berlin and Austin. So, that's going to be probably the best gross margins we've seen so far, assuming there's nothing kind of crazy with, like, I don't know, supply chain concerns or anything like that, which I wouldn't really expect. But after that, those 2 factories, Austin and Berlin, are going to have lower margins, certainly than Shanghai, but also probably lower than Fremont, probably for the first 3, 4, 5 quarters. So, maybe we get over, 30% or something like that again in Q4, but then maybe it drops down a couple percent. And then kind of starts to slowly climb back up as those plants get optimized.
Yeah. Yeah. From Alex B, someone here asked your opinion before about selling Rocket Lab 2024 puts, leaps. What repels you from this trade? I mean, nothing repels us from this trade. I think we actually looked at it, and we even tried to put in like a limit order to sell it, but it didn't fill, even though Rocket Lab went down. Yeah, it seems like a decent risk reward to sell some long-term puts on such. It just seems like also they're so illiquid. A lot of these puts that are 2 years out, the bid ask spread can be like 20% of the premium. So like it might be $4 by $5. So you don't want to sell it at the bid at $4 and hurt yourself on 20%. You want to sell it closer to $5. So you want to, you don't know where the actual price should be. Should it be 450 or should it be 490? So sometimes it's hard to get filled on trades like that in a way that you think is cost effective, without getting screwed on the bid offer spread. So you have to be careful about, doing orders on, especially illiquid. Rocket Lab is an illiquid stock relative to Tesla, for example. So, the long-term options, the leaps, can be especially illiquid. And so you don't want to get hurt on the very wide bid offer spreads on those. So you have to be careful.
Yeah, and yeah, that's fine. We can go. Let's just go on to the next question.
We'll make this the last question because I think we're about 10:30. So let's see what the last question is here. From Dan Mac 51 on Twitter. Understand limits on fund owning directly in crypto. Would the fund invest in crypto assets like MicroStrategy or BITO? BITO, I think that's the futures based ETF.
It's the futures ETF.
Bitcoin futures ETF. Yeah. So our fund cannot invest directly in crypto. And we have talked publicly a lot about MicroStrategy play we do in the fund, and we're still doing it, where we look at MicroStrategy as sort of a proxy to Bitcoin or almost like a derivative. And then there's derivatives on the derivatives. So there's options on MicroStrategy. And so we're selling calls and puts around MicroStrategy to collect income and a return. And Matt's been tracking it because, a large percentage of MicroStrategy's market cap is actually based on the value of the Bitcoin it holds on its balance sheet. Right, Matt? So
Yeah, it's like it fluctuates a little bit, but generally it's around 90% of Bitcoin's total market cap is just explainable by the holdings of Bitcoin that they have.
You mean of MicroStrategy's market cap is reflecting of?
Yeah. So did I say
You
something
said
different?
Bitcoin's. If you said
Oh,
Bitcoin's
Bitcoin's
total
total
market
market cap. Yeah,
cap.
that doesn't make any
Yeah,
sense. Yeah, sorry,
yeah,
MicroStrategy's total market cap. So
yeah.
we track that over time, and sometimes they kind of get out of whack, and so you would expect a correction upward or downward, and so we maybe adjust our strategy a little bit based on that. But yeah, no, we kind of like that as a play. It's a little bit of a unique strategy. It's a relatively small portion of our total fund,
Yeah.
but it's one that we like, and we like to sell the volatility on that.
Yeah, it's like excess cash we do different things with, and one of the things we do is that kind of play around MicroStrategy, which we feel is low risk overall, relative to going long a bunch of growth stocks like we are for most of our positions. And there's a couple other things we do around some excess cash occasionally that we have in our fund. But yeah, that's something we like to do. So
Yeah.
all right. So with that, I guess we'll end it for this week. And yeah, thanks everyone for joining us. And we'll do next Tuesday again, same time, same place. And yeah, we hope to have some interesting recorded interviews on our YouTube channel published in the coming weeks that people will like. And yeah, into next year, we got some exciting plans we'll talk about soon. So looking forward to doing those. And we'll end it with that. Thanks.